From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, this is Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Riley Smith. In today's show, Mark has a clip from the March episode of Pods of Potential. I have the latest U.S. export sales with Greg McBride of Allendale. And Dustin talks biofuels with Iowa Senator Joni Ernst. It's time now to join our hosts, Mark Magnuson and Dustin Huffman.
Dustin, I know you're going to be talking biofuels in one aspect today on today's show, as you will be joined by Senator Joni Ernst on today's program. I believe you're going to discuss 45Z a little bit more in depth and those tax credits and what those mean for farmers moving forward. But also, we are expecting today, of course, we have talked about this for many weeks now leading up to this event, the Celebration of Ag event that is going to take place at the White House. And we are waiting to see if we will finally get the RVO blending requirements announcement today from EPA, from the White House, if that will be announced. And at the very least, we have it on record, the administrator for EPA, Lee Zeldin, saying that we will get those announcements before the end of the month. So if we don't get it today, you would think it's going to happen on Monday or Tuesday, but it sounds like it's finally going to be announced, the announcement that we've been waiting for really quite some time.
Yeah, that it is. But part of me in my brain is also saying we were also going to have an E15 year-round bill passed by the end of February, too. So, I'll take this with a grain of salt until I actually hear an announcement. Yes, I will be talking with Senator Joni Ernst here about 45Z and about the E15 year-round and why that needs to get done. Of course, Senate Farm Bill version is being talked about, and they mentioned that could be a possibility as well in their version of it. So maybe there is a way to get that vehicle through, but again, we're going to have to wait and see. But it is hopeful. We're hopeful that this announcement today will be good. Again, today or by the 31st, either way, we're going to get some idea of what's going on. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. Of course, temperatures getting even better, a little bit cooler today, but the soil temperatures were right in the ballpark where they need to be to start the anhydrous application yesterday. Sure, a lot of farmers were out across the state testing the waters and seeing how things were working for getting it in, but now cooling off again. So if you didn't get it in, you might want to double check those soil temperatures before you knife in here right now.
And also the wind is becoming a factor here in the last couple of days as it's been very, very windy. But staying on the topic of weather, Dustin, I was reading this yesterday. After nearly a year and a half of the La Nina weather system, North America is facing a major shift to an El Nino system. And some climate scientists say there's a possibility of a super El Nino event as the growing season progresses this summer. And the last time we had a super El Nino was 10 years ago. That began in mid-2016 and continuing into 2017. Now, what does an El Nino system mean for us? Well, it will take several months to develop, but by early summer, it would cause air temperatures to rise above normal, along with a milder and wetter growing season, and that would continue into the fall and winter.
Well, we'll definitely see if that pans out. We'll have to check that out as the year goes on. But right now, we're going to get started on the grains as we're going to hear from Matt Bennett of agmarket.net with Mark Magnuson.
Joined today by Matt Bennett of agmarket.net. Matt, what's happening with the trade in the grains?
Yeah, I mean, overnight, we actually had decent markets, about 6 cents off the highs, actually. And so, on the overnight markets, you had pretty good markets there for a while. I mean, if we look around and see, of course, the catalyst here lately, crude oil market's up strong. You're up $3 here, go up. But anytime you get these pullbacks, the market's been really good at seeing some of that buying come in. So no doubt at this stage of the game, you're probably most beholden to what's going on over in Iran. And so as long as these energy markets stay strong, I think the grain markets will be fairly resilient.
And we know that EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin has mentioned we're going to get the RVO announcement here imminently. What's kind of your outlook on what could happen with the ag marketplace once we get that announcement?
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, I think those numbers are fairly well known by the trade. I don't expect any sort of a major difference. I think, you've got this big meeting, whatever it's called, the ag deal at the White House today. And there's probably the chance that maybe you get something even in addition to the RVO. Maybe it's a talk of a little more aid for the grower based upon this fertilizer discussion. There's a whole host of things that could be potentially rolled out there. Maybe it's something more on E15 year round. I don't know. Whatever it is, we've got to hope that there's some good news coming out of that. But in my opinion, once we find out these RVO numbers, I don't believe, unless it's just a shock to everyone, I don't believe it's going to affect the market a whole lot. I got to think those numbers are baked in.
And then, of course, next week is the big prospective plantings report. I know we've talked already quite a bit about that, Matt, but as we think ahead to next week, are you of the mindset of what we learn on Tuesday is a big market mover one way or the other? Or if the numbers come out differently from what we kind of have in terms of industry expectations?
Yeah, I mean, what it boils down to, in my opinion, whenever it comes to acreage, I think a lot of skepticism will be met with maybe a little bit higher number. If you get a higher number, I think a lot of folks are going to say, hey, everything about the grower's mindset based upon the timing of this war situation. And so I'm not totally sure, that if you get a really high number, we're just going to go to, handbasket. I mean, I do think there will be some skepticism there. The flip side of that, though, is that if you get outside of the range of guesses, let's say like a 96.5 number or something like that, that's certainly not going to be supportive of the market. We all know that. Now, the other flip side of this is, hey, what if we're in a full-on, this war isn't coming to an end type discussion, and you see crude oil over $100, that could mitigate some of your downside pressure. And of course, then the last thing is, what do quarterly stocks look like? We all know that we've got more corn on hand than what we did a year ago. But if that would come in even higher, than what the average trade guesses are, then I think some people might assume that, hey, maybe demand isn't quite as good as what we thought. First of all, maybe second of all, the crop was even bigger than what they said. I don't believe that's going to be the case, but there's a whole host of things that could happen. And there's no doubt volatility is likely to be quite strong here as we get closer to Tuesday. Once those numbers get released, though, I do think you're going to default back to, hey, what's going on the other side of the pond, because there's so many implications there.
Your local radio station brings you the local news you depend on. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network complements that with ag news, weather, and market updates tailored for Iowa's farmers. Together, we deliver the best of both worlds, local connection and industry expertise. It's all to keep you connected with the heartbeat of the heartland. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, connecting rural Iowa with the news that matters to you.
You're listening to Iowa Ag Matters on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. It is time now for Dustin Huffman's conversation with Senator Joni Ernst as they focus on 45Z tax credits.
Here on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and we're being joined today by Senator Joni Ernst. And Senator, thanks so much for taking the time to visit with us here today. All right, we're going to be talking about 45Z. Of course, that's something we are waiting to get everything finalized on. You want to talk about where things are right now?
Yeah, so right now going through the rulemaking process, and I've penned a letter to the administration because right now it's incredibly important that we get 45Z right. Senator Chuck Grassley and I have both been really big supporters of 45Z, but we need to make sure that it's all encompassing and it really benefits our Iowa farmers. And so we're encouraging whether it's USDA, whether it's the Energy Department, whether it is Treasury, they need to be aware of the other efforts that our farmers are engaged in. So those farmers that are using no-till technologies, those that are doing cover crops, if we're using optimized fertilizer. I mean, there are so many different things that simply were not included in proposed drafts of the rule. So we're really focused on those efforts. And again, penned a letter to the administration, really working with the leaders at those three agencies in particular, but making sure that even though we've been doing no-till farming in Iowa for years and years, decades even, I was a small child when my dad started no-till farming, to those farmers that are using cover crops and started using those years ago. We want to make sure that even though these are existing technologies, that they're taken into consideration because they are conserving our soil and making it healthier. We are sequestering carbon using those types of technologies. So let's make sure we get the benefit from it.
And of course, getting the 45Z correct not only benefits our farmers, but our biofuels producers in this state that are going to be buying those crops from those farmers, so they know what they're working with.
Yeah, absolutely. We can get up to $1 of credit then for using those domestic crops and these types of technologies that fall within 45Z. So that's why we've just really got to get this right as they are writing guidance and rules for 45Z.
Another topic we're going to talk about here is E15. We've talked about this often and trying to get this year-round bill passed. It didn't happen like we were hoping in February. We're still sitting. I mean, if anything, right now we're seeing the power of what E15 has at the price at the pump as those prices continue to go up.
Oh, absolutely. And it has been pretty remarkable how I'm cornered. Anytime I'm walking in the hallways, I'm cornered about, oh, what do you think about the price of fuel today? And I just pivot because I know they would rather talk about Iran and what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz. But what I can do, and my mission always, is to promote our Iowa biofuels. And included in that, of course, is E15 year round. So I immediately pivot. I don't go where they want me to go. What I do is talk about E15 year round and how important it is. It's a win-win. It is a win for the farmers and producers of the ethanol. And then it is a win for the consumers as they go to the retail pump because they immediately see the cost of their fuel lowered when they're purchasing E15. So I think this is a great solution.
In rural Iowa, you need reliable information. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network brings you ag-specific content like market trends, weather outlooks, and policy updates that matter to your operation, while your local station brings you community news and consistent updates on what is happening in your area. It's a partnership built for the challenges of rural life. Your farm, your local station, and your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters. Find us online at iowaagnet.com. Time to run down the basis numbers here on Iowa Ag Matters on this Friday. I'm Dustin Huffman. Not seeing very much change at all in the numbers from yesterday. A few elevators have improved their bids. On the corn side, those who have raised it have been about 1 to 2 cents higher. Soybeans have been raised about 3 cents here on those that have been making movements. Let's take a look at where the pricing. ADM Burlington 20 cents under on corn, $4.50. Soybeans 45 cents under, $11.33. Cargill Eddyville 21 cents under on corn, $4.49 for the cash bid. New Co-op Algona, 45 cents under on corn, $4.25. Soybeans, 77 cents under, cash bid, $11.01. Ag State Sheldon, 30 cents under on corn, $4.40. Soybeans, 86 cents under at $10.92. Ag State Elcha, 45 cents under on corn, cash bid, $4.25. Soybeans, 81 cents under at $10.97. Cargill Cedar Rapids, 15 cents under on corn, $4.55. Soybeans, 25 cents under, cash bid, $11.53. Five-Star Co-op Nashua, 30 cents under on corn, $4.40. Soybeans, 66 cents under at $11.12. Lincoln Way Energy Nevada, 28 cents under on corn, $4.42 for the cash bid. ADM Des Moines, 40 cents under on soybeans, the cash price, $11.38. New Co-op Red Oak, 35 cents under on corn, $4.35. Soybeans, 75 cents under at $11.03. Mid-Iowa Cooperative Green Mountain, 48 cents under on corn, cash price $4.22. Soybeans, 85 cents under, $10.93. New Co-op Sheraton, 37 cents under on corn, $4.33. Soybeans, 75 cents under with a cash bid of $11.03. Walk-On Feed Ranch, 43 cents under on corn, $4.27. Soybeans, 70 cents under, $11.08. New Co-op Glidden, 44 cents under on corn, $4.26. Soybeans, 75 cents under at $11.03. Innovative Ag Farley, 46 cents under on corn, $4.24. Soybeans, 74 cents under at $11.04. And Cargill Muscatine, 22 cents under on corn, $4.48. Soybeans, 52 cents under at $11.26. Cash, corn, and soybean bids are subject to change without notice. Always check with your local elevator when making sales to obtain the most recent price. And that's been a check of your basis report here on Iowa Ag Matters. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this message.
Stay informed with the closing market report from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, your essential summary of the day's market activities and their impact on the agricultural economy. Join us for timely updates and expert commentary on commodity prices and market trends with trusted ag market analysts from around the Midwest. Tune in every Monday through Friday on your local Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network affiliate for your daily market recap and insights to stay ahead in the ag economy.
Well, the latest episode of Pods of Potential dropped yesterday, and Mark Magnuson's giving us a preview of it right now as they talked about edge of field practices with conservation efforts with the folks at the Iowa Soybean Association. Here's Mark Magnuson.
Welcome into this episode of the Pods of Potential podcast. Today's topic of discussion is water quality drainage practices. My name is Mark Magnuson. Thanks for joining us for episode number 29. And we're here with our friends at the Iowa Soybean Association's Research Center for Farming Innovations. Conservation agronomist Alex Logan, also joined by Jake Luft, the owner of Luft & Sons, and sales manager John Allers.
The Iowa Soybean Association's Research Center for Farming Innovation, driven to deliver productive, profitable, and sustainable practices to Iowa's farmers.
All right, guys, so let's get to know each other a little bit better here as we begin the podcast today. Alex, you are, of course, with the Iowa Soybean Association. Could you tell me a little bit, please, about where you're from originally, what's kind of your background in agriculture, and your favorite thing about working in conservation?
I'm from Indianola, Iowa, so kind of south central Iowa. I went to Iowa State for 6 years. Part of that 6 years was getting my undergrad in agronomy, and then I went for grad school for soil science. So my background's really in water quality and soil science and looking at how we can use the soil to better grow plants and be more sustainable with how we grow those plants. My favorite thing about working in conservation has to be being a resource for farmers as they start that conservation really pathway, and being a resource in finding different programs that will support their end goals with the conservation that they're implementing on the farm.
So you said you went to Iowa State when you were very first there, day number one. Did you want to get into conservation right from the get-go?
Yep, I went to Iowa State knowing that my soil science background would lead me into conservation. I knew for early on I didn't want to go into sales, and that's not what the degree was going to be for me, and that conservation was my end goal.
And then I would imagine getting a chance to work at Iowa Soybean Association, you know you're going to be doing something that is important for Iowa farmers every day in terms of conservation. Had to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, so really in college, my end goal was to work at Iowa Soybean. When I got out of grad school, it's one of the first places that I applied to work. I did do a couple years in carbon sustainability modeling for dairy farmers in between, but it was really a dream of mine to come back and work for Iowa farmers.
And then Jake Luft, also thank you for joining the podcast here today. We're here at Luft & Sons in Pocahontas. And Jake, are you originally from Pocahontas? Could you tell us a little bit of the background about this business, please?
Yeah, for sure. No, I was born and raised in Pocahontas. In 1948, my grandpa started this business. He was doing, pretty much anything you could do with an excavator. He was laying tile and digging graves and all sorts of little odds and ends. My dad bought the business from my grandpa in 1981. Then in 2011, me and my brother started our acquisition process from Dad, and then we finished that out in 2021. And yeah, I've basically been in it my whole life.
So Jake, were you able to pick it up and run with it right away when you got involved with the business? Was this something you always kind of had an interest in?
Sort of. I mean, when I went to school, I wasn't necessarily planning on doing this, but it just seemed like the best thing. My brother came back from school and he decided to start working alongside my dad. And then we kind of got into it together. We implemented a lot of new things. I mean, my dad was still running a laser back in like 2008, 2009. And then we kind of talked with him. We're like, hey, we need to upgrade. We need to get to GPS and we need to. So we really started pushing for growth and hiring more people and just like, making the process more efficient. So that made it fun.
So now that you have worked in this business for a decent amount of time, you know the ins and outs of it. What is your favorite part about working in draining and tiling?
I mean, for me, it probably used to be running the equipment, and just doing all the dirt work and that sort of thing. And there's a lot of variety in that. But I would say today it's probably the people. It's probably our employees and the clients that we work with and just trying to meet everybody's needs. And it's like solving a big puzzle. Like every field has got a different approach. So it's just kind of neat to be a part of that process and like try to get the best drainage system possible.
And sales manager John Allers also on the podcast here today. And John, could you tell me please your background? Where are you from originally? And what's your favorite part of working in drainage and tiling?
I was born here in Pocahontas, Iowa, and grew up in a neighboring town. I grew up farming a little bit with some of my family and was heavily involved in FFA. Always had an interest and drifted away from that for quite a few years. I served in the military for quite a long time and made a career out of that, and eventually made my way back here to the Midwest And I've known Jake's brother Jeff for many years, and this position was being created, and I had an interest in drainage and came on board. And I would say my favorite part of this industry is really just building the relationships with our clients, and then also helping those landowners and farmers to enhance more sustainable farming practices and protecting their investment.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
You know, it's interesting, Mark, listening to that episode of Pods of Potential, talking about the practices that a lot of people have been using, but also going back to my discussion earlier with Senator Joni Ernst talking about 45Z and farmers needing to be getting credit for the practices they've been using for many years already. Edge of field practices among those. And, you know, interesting, what did you learn in that discussion? And we'll be hearing here coming up as well, and folks can hear at iowaagnet.com.
Well, Dustin, it was an interesting conversation because it was all about how farmers use tile systems to drain excess water from their fields, but also how tile drainage can be paired with, for example, a buffer strip to enhance water quality. I mean, we're all pulling that rope in the same direction of trying to lower those nitrate numbers that end up in our rivers. And so I was able to speak with Iowa Soybean Association conservation agronomist Alex Logan. And then we also were joined by Jake Luft and John Allers of Luft & Sons Farm Drainage. So it was how those things can all work together. But at the end of the day, it is, you know, a business helping with the pattern tiling, for example, and then Iowa Soybean helping you implement those practices in your field to help with the conservation efforts, like you mentioned, and how they all come together. And again, at the end of the day, it's all about trying to improve that water quality. So you can check out that latest episode again at our website at iowaagnet.com. More Iowa Ag Matters in a moment.
Your local radio station brings you the local news you depend on. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network complements that with ag news, weather, and market updates tailored for Iowa's farmers. Together, we deliver the best of both worlds, local connection and industry expertise. It's all to keep you connected with the heartbeat of the heartland. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, connecting rural Iowa with the news that matters to you.
This is the Midday Market Update on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson. Joined in midday by Lori Carter of Comstock. Lori, what's happening with the trade in the grains?
Trade in the grains is mixed a little at the moment. Earlier, it was kind of all higher, but currently we have Kansas City wheat up 5.5 to 5 3/4. Chicago wheat's down about a penny. Corn's down 2 1/4 across the board, and soybeans down 6 3/4 on old crop and down a penny on new crop November.
Lori, what do we point to at the end of this week for what's moving the marketplace right now? Because there's so much happening. I know the war is always going to be factored in and what's happening with the oil price, but there's also some announcements coming up and then the big prospective plannings report next week that we have to factor in for what could be moving things, don't we?
Yes, I would have to just say all of the above. There's so many factors playing a part in what the market does on a daily and sometimes hourly basis that I couldn't point to any single one of them, actually.
And you mentioned what's happening with the wheat price right now. What's happening with wheat in recent days and kind of how that's playing into all of the factors that are taking place around the world?
I mean, I'd say that part of it is weather events, high temperatures, high winds in the wheat growing areas after some cold temperatures 10 days ago or so. So I'm probably concerned about the condition of the crop out here anyway for the hard red winter wheat.
Let's talk about the livestock side of the markets. What's happening with the trade for cattle and hogs?
Cattle across the board higher. We have fat cattle up $295 to $310, feeder cattle up $480 to $567, and actually we've been a couple of bucks higher on most all of that. As far as a reason for that, I do not have one. I do not see bullish information that would feed that. Over on the hog side, they're up $1.15 to $2, with the exception of the April, which is tied closely to the cash index.
Is there anything happening on the hog side of the markets here today?
The hog and pig report, I guess, was seen as a little bit negative, but I think it's hard to push that lower push those lower with the cattle doing what they're doing and with there already being a basically historically wide spread between the two.
What's the best way for our listeners to get in touch for more marketing information?
You can call me at 712-227-1171.
She is Lori Carter with Comstock, my guest here at Midday on Friday. Lori, thank you for the time. Always appreciate it, and have a great weekend.
Thanks, you too.
Stay informed with the closing market report from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, your essential summary of the day's market activities and their impact on the agricultural economy. Join us for timely updates and expert commentary on commodity prices and market trends with trusted ag market analysts from around the Midwest. Tune in every Monday through Friday on your local Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network affiliate for your daily market recap and insights to stay ahead in the ag economy.
May corn down 2.5 at 464.5. May soybeans down 6.5 at 1167.25. May soybean meal down 280 at 319.30. May soybean oil up 43 cents at 68.45. On the Merc, April live cattle up 238 at 237.48. April feeder cattle up 465 at 359.73. April lean hogs down 3 cents at 90.80. April pork cutout unchanged at 103.40. That was a check of the midday markets on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson.
Back on Iowa Ag Matters, and it's time for us to get into the livestock portion of the markets as Matt Bennett of agmarket.net rejoins the conversation with Mark Magnuson to talk about what's happening in cattle and hogs.
What's happening on the livestock side of the trade?
Yeah, I mean, you look at livestock, and we're up just a little bit here. I mean, you look at, for instance, fats, and if you look at the chart, there's no doubt we're just kind of in a sideways pattern. Quite frankly, as fats go, there hadn't been much movement at all, for the last several sessions. We're just kind of hanging out here above most of the moving averages other than the 50-day, and I'm talking about April right now. And so it sure seems to me like the market doesn't want to move back above all moving averages. If you would break out above the 50-day and unsurface some buying, there's no question that that would look awfully good. But at the same time, I think it's pretty tough for you to expect this cattle market to have any sort of strength, as long as you continue to see this really supportive nature over on the corn side of things. So it's still, of course, it's fundamentally quite bullish, but I do think that you've got a tired investor at the same time, and I think you've got to feed the bull, so to speak, pretty consistently if you want to take this market much higher than what we're currently seeing. I just think there's too many things that could get in the way, a person taking a long position and making money there, even though the fundamentals are really good.
Was there anything of note in the hogs and pigs report?
To be honest with you, I didn't even look that close at the hogs and pigs report. I know that whenever I looked at the market this morning, I thought, well, if the market's moving around a whole lot, I'm going to take a look at it. But I've been too focused on basketball, Mark, to be honest with you. So that's about all I've been watching here, over the last 24 hours. It's, been that time of year. And I know Iowa's got their, I think Iowa's ready to go. Illinois is ready to go. It'd be nice to get a Big Ten team in the Final Four regardless. But, no, I didn't even look at the hogs and pigs report, to be totally honest with you.
Matt's a big Illinois fan, so no problems there, Matt. You got to stay locked in as a fan. Head to agmarket.net for all of the marketing information and resources from the team. Matt, thanks so much for the time. Always appreciate it, and have a great weekend.
Oh, absolutely, as well.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
In rural Iowa, we know you're sold on your local radio station. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network partners with local Iowa stations to deliver the latest in agriculture news, including grain elevator prices, market reports, and ag policy news. Trusted local voices, trusted ag content. This message is brought to you by your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
You're listening to Iowa Ag Matters, and it's time now for Riley Smith's weekly conversation with Greg McBride of Allendale, as we will get the latest wrap-up of the weekly export sales. Here's Riley with more.
Riley Smith, Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, on the phone right now with Greg McBride of Allendale as we take a look at the weekly U.S. export sales. First off, Greg, what do we see in the corn numbers from the USDA?
Yeah, old crop corn came in at 1.217 million tons. New crop corn came in at 135,000 tons. Overall, this is a little bit of a mixed performance. This is a good versus the 3-year average of just over 1 million tons. But if we normally watch the 5-year average, there were 2 years in there where we had phase one buying that were just astronomically high numbers. So it kind of looks a little disappointing compared to that if you use a 5-year average. So, but overall, we still know that export sales for corn are still very strong and continuing to look good for us.
And then on the bean side of things, we know it's been a little disappointing recently. How's that looked this week?
We had a little bit of a rebound here this week. Soybean sales for old crop came in 669,000 tons. We did have some minor 27,000 tons of new crop sold. So this does put you over the 5-year average. But again, this is a situation, as you mentioned, we've been lagging a little bit. We continue to lag. We just need to see better sales in general, and we just don't have that right now.
And then as far as flash sales go, have we seen any of that recently, and where have they gone?
Yeah, very few and far between lately. We did get a sale earlier this week of corn and beans to Mexico. So obviously China not a big presence at this point, but seeing one of our major trade partners like Mexico come in and buy both corn and beans does stand out to us.
And then as far as other reports coming up soon, we've got those prospective planning or the planning intentions reports, and then quarterly grain stocks coming out next week. Very big reports for the marketplace to be looking at as of right now. What are you guys expecting to see in those reports?
Yeah, down about 5 million acres on corn, get you back down to closer to 94-ish million acres. You get beans that'll be up anywhere from 3 to 4, maybe even 3 to 5 million acres, get you back up to 87, 88 million acres. Overall, it's not, 84 to 85 million acres for beans. Overall, it's not anything that really has a whole lot of controversy around it. Very many of the people that we talk to regarding acres, it all kind of seems like it's falling in line with something in the 94 million acre area, 84 to 85 million acre area for beans. The thing I will watch very closely is going to be the quarterly grain stocks numbers, specifically looking at the corn side of things. USDA can use that feed and residual category on the usage side of things as a way to kind of explain away additions or subtractions to the overall pile of corn that we have throughout the year. And this is one of those times where we don't necessarily have an explanation for it, but you could see, 100 million or 200 million bushels on either side that either make this market look a little more friendly or make it look a little more negative.
All right, Greg, lots of great information today. For anyone who would like to get in touch with Allendale for more marketing information, how can they do that?
Give us a call at 800-2-MARKET. That's 800-262-7538.
Stay up to date with the latest in the ag industry with Agribusiness Matters from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Each weekday, we bring you the latest advancements in farming, from new precision ag technology to cutting-edge sustainable farming practices. Agribusiness Matters is also your source for the most relevant ag news, policy discussions, and insights that are shaping the future of agriculture. Tune in to Agribusiness Matters on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
In rural Iowa, we know you're sold on your local radio station. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network partners with local Iowa stations to deliver the latest in agriculture news, including grain elevator prices, market reports, and ag policy news. Trusted local voices, trusted ag content. This message is brought to you by your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
Well, that brings us to the end of another week here on Iowa Ag Matters. Again, happy Iowa Agriculture Week to everybody as that wraps up tomorrow. Thanks to Mark, thanks to Riley, and of course, thanks to you for listening. Have a great weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday on Iowa Ag Matters. You've been listening to the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.